I know you've got some awesome travel information coming up in your presentation here. Just before we get started, I really just would love for you to share the story of
Yeah.
extrapackofpeanuts.com. Where is that from?
Well, I get asked this quite a bit, and as most people, when you're starting a site, you think that the name of your website has to be perfect, and so I asked all my friends, for like 2 months, I was trying to come up with a good name for my website, and then one night, as it usually is, before I was going to sleep, I thought extra pack of peanuts. That's kind of interesting, and it's a metaphor really for kind of my lifestyle, really. When I was a kid, my parents would have us travel down to Florida quite a bit, and I got really sick on airplanes. I got really bad motion sickness. I didn't like flying. I would be sick like the day before because I'd be so nervous, and then for a day or two after, I'd get really sick as well. And sometimes the poor, unfortunate people sitting next to me had to bear the brunt of that and things like that. But the one thing that stuck out for me when I was flying, the silver lining to flying every time was that I would always ask for an extra pack of peanuts because I used to give out those, peanuts on flights. And of course, the flight attendant would always give me one, and I'd sit there thinking in my 8-year-old brain, man, I am really gaming the system here. Like, I'm sitting in this seat getting 2 packs of peanuts. Everyone else on this plane's getting one. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. Like, I was really making out like a bandit here. And little did I know they probably would have given me 1,000 packs of peanuts if I had asked for it. But in my 8-year-old head, that was really, really neat. And so I was getting more than the person next to me. I was getting something extra, kind of quote unquote gaming the system. And so when I started learning about frequent flyer miles, and when I started flying around the world for, I'd be sitting in a seat and I would have paid $80 for that flight, and someone next to me would have paid 1,000. I just thought, well, isn't this the perfect metaphor? Now I'm actually gaming the system and getting something really cool outside of a pack of peanuts. So that's where extra pack of peanuts, the genesis of it came from.
I absolutely love that story. It is just the coolest thing ever. And I think it just really sets the scene because it is definitely, I mean, your email signature is Cheap Travel Guru, and I absolutely agree with that. You've helped so many people, hundreds and hundreds of people all around the world. The presentation is hopefully going to answer all your questions, but please bring your questions in. We will have a Q&A at here. And if you do stick with us right through to the end, Travis is going to share a brand new secret that he's just shared with Nat, myself, and Natalie Sisson, the suitcase entrepreneur. None of us knew about it because it cannot even be searched online. So stick around to the end for that. So everyone's saying they can hear. That's really cool. So I think we're just going to hand it over to you, boy.
All right. Well, yeah, I have as Jodie said, thank you guys for letting me do this. I have a presentation. I'm going to answer kind of the commonly asked questions or kind of go through how frequent flyer miles work very generally. And then, of course, I would love to answer your questions at the end. I know you guys have a lot of questions that you've already said to Jodie and Nat, so I'll be excited to do that. So I'm going to give you the 3 main secrets of getting any flight for under $100 because that's kind of where I set the baseline. My wife and I have been able to travel all around the world for under $100, and so today my goal is to teach you how to get flights anywhere in the world without paying more than $100 per ticket. And I really honestly believe that this can happen for anyone. I've seen a bunch of different types of people go through this: young, old, couples, families, single travelers, people who travel once a year, people who travel 100 times a year. It doesn't really matter. So our goal is to try to get you guys to your dream destination. I always ask that everyone, when I start a presentation, think about where their dream destination is. Like, make it tangible. Where is it that you actually want to go? What is that place you've always said, man, if money was no object, or if I didn't have to pay for a plane ticket, or I didn't have these expenses, I would go here. So let's start with that, and if you guys want to, you can put that in the chat box. That's always a cool way to kind of start so that we can see where you guys would actually want to go. I can't see the chat box, but Nat and Jodie, you guys can probably see it. Moving on here, just to give you a little bit of background, Jodie, thank you so much for the introduction. I am the founder of Extra Pack of Peanuts. We started the site in January of 2012. And I'm the very first person to teach frequent flyer miles to the masses. When I first started, and I'm going to get into this a little bit, people were talking about it, and it was like some people were writing a little bit about it online, but no one was teaching it. And that was my issue, was that when I had to learn it, no one was teaching it in a nice, easy-to-understand manner, and that's why I decided to start the site that I did. We've had stuff that's been featured in USA Today, the Huffington Post, Kiplinger's, and all that's great, but most importantly, we've been able to visit over 30 countries for under $100. So just in the past year, in the past 365 days, my wife and I have been able to take some quote-unquote once-in-a-lifetime trips, but a lot of you guys are going to realize when you don't have to pay for flights, you only have to pay $100. Once in a lifetime really becomes like once this month or maybe even twice this month. So we've gone to Paris. We were in Italy last year, Slovakia with some awesome castles there. Croatia, absolutely stunning country. If you guys haven't been there, top of the list, one of my favorite countries in the world. Montenegro, where I even got to steal a little girl's basketball and shoot some hoops on a floating basketball court. That was pretty cool. Prague, Vienna, Berlin, London, which that is a very typical picture of London, nice and cloudy, beautiful skyline, but very cloudy, of course. Colorado, so this was the last time we were up in Breckenridge, actually. We got to go skiing on Vail. We went back to Italy, but this time we spent about 2.5 weeks in Tuscany in an old restored farmhouse there, which was fantastic. We went to Thailand, and really cool about this picture is that is me and my wife, and then 4 other people who have gone through boot camp with us, gone through Frequent Flyer boot camp. So it was really neat because we actually all hung out for a whole month, and we traveled around Thailand together. So that was a very fun experience. We were in Bali for a little while, Istanbul, Burma, one of the hardest traveling I've ever done, but also one of the most enjoyable, just a fantastic country. Cambodia, and then we were also in Thailand with my parents just recently, a month ago. And every single place that we went, we were paying under $100 per flight. Some of those trips we actually stacked on top of each other, which I'll explain a little later of how you can take 2 or 3 vacations for the price of one. And some of those we got to do that. So I'll get into that. And then in the last month, we've been to Nashville, Denver, Austin, and now we're back here in Breckenridge, and we've been paying $5 a flight with Southwest. I pay $5. My wife Heather pays $5. We can go anywhere in the U.S. or actually now that Southwest flies internationally, we'll be going down to Mexico. And I know Nat and Jodie will be going to Mexico in June, but we're going to beat them down there. We're going to be going right after this in the middle of May. So
okay, well, I just wanted to add in just for 1 second there, Travis, only because we personally saw you book that flight the day before you flew out.
Yep.
And that blew our minds. So sitting here in Breckenridge, Travis and Heather were like, well, do we go to Austin or not? And then, bang, booked it, fully refundable flight for $5 was just mind-blowing. And just to answer when you asked about where people are wanting to go, the answers that came in were Australia, Greece, Africa, rural areas, New Zealand, Europe first, US, and then South America and onwards, Africa. And Jan said, wow, I'm already on the plane.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's going to be some things I teach you that'll blow your mind even more, but it's so awesome when you don't have to worry about the cost of it. I mean, we've gone to some countries that would be very, very expensive to travel to, and as you mentioned, one of the really neat things with some sort of frequent flyer miles like Southwest miles is that you can book it the day before pretty easily, and as you mentioned, they're fully refundable. There's been a time we were driving to the Philadelphia airport and we were going to miss our flight because it was boarding in 15 minutes and we weren't there, and we just called them up and said, hey, we can't make it, and they gave us all our points back and our $5 back, even our $5 back. How nice of them. So there's a lot of neat things that you can do with frequent flyer miles that you can't do with paid tickets, like kind of these, I don't want to say loopholes, they're just extra rules with frequent flyer miles. So not only are you going to get cheap flights, but you're also, it gives you more flexibility, which is a big thing for our lifestyle because a lot of times we don't have things planned out too far in advance. But all those things that we've got to do, the best thing really with the site, and I know you guys can attest to it with your house sitting world and all that stuff, the best thing is that we're helping people book their own dream trip. So it's really neat that we get to travel everywhere, but it's really, really neat that we help thousands of people book their own dream trips and really get to travel, because I know for me, travel has been the thing that has opened my eyes up and taught me more in the last 5-6 years from when I've really been doing it than I ever learned from anything else, college or going through school or anything like that. So it's a really cool gift to be able to give people to be able to help them out.
Absolutely.
So
and if I could just add
awesome.
in there,
I have done a lot of things wrong, though.
I just wanted to add in one little more thing about you as well, is that you are actually, you did go on to school and became a teacher. So just for everyone to really sit and pay attention to this, because Travis is an amazing teacher and also researcher, because really this is where all this has come from. So I'll let you go now. That was the last thing I need to say.
Yeah, well, that was the kind of the point of it. When I started learning about frequent flyer miles, you're going to see how hard it was for me. I said, someone has to make this easier. Like, why does everyone have to recreate their wheel here? No one was doing it in a certain way. Having a teaching background, I kind of took it upon myself. I just was like, well, this is how I learn. I'm going to teach it this way, and it's really taken off because it's obviously a great topic, and it's presented in a way that's manageable. So I've done a lot of great things in terms of travel. We've been very fortunate, but I've done a lot of things wrong. When I was 28 years old, I didn't have a single frequent flyer mile to my name. That was about 4.5 years ago. I had flown a bunch, but I never even earned frequent flyer miles from flying, which now I know is like the cardinal sin because you just get them for doing nothing. I had always spent $800, $1,000 anytime I wanted to travel. I'm like, I have to spend $1,000 a ticket. We're going to London. Let's fork over $850, and then I'd get it $50 cheaper because I'd see a deal and I'd get all excited. And that's exactly how I was all the way up until 4.5 years ago. So if that's how you're feeling right now, or if that's just the kind of travel that you've always done, that's fine. I mean, the reason is because you haven't learned this yet, and I was that exact same way, and I think that's one of the reasons I'm able to teach it to people because I haven't known it all my life. So I've done a lot of things wrong. I've rectified that. After doing this for 4.5 years, I realized I didn't have to spend money on plane tickets. That was an amazing realization when I actually started doing this, and then we're seeing the fruits of my labor of like, wow, we actually are getting here for $50 or $60. Learned how to use the frequent flyer miles and points to get me to any spot on the globe. I kind of mentioned we've been all over the place. When and how to actually book tickets, that's really important, both for pay tickets and frequent flyer miles. We're going to touch on that in a little bit. And also figured out how to not pay the hidden taxes that most airlines charge. And that's a big thing with frequent flyer miles. I don't want to get too into it because it gets pretty in-depth, but you can use frequent flyer miles, but if you're getting hit with those hidden taxes, you're going to use your frequent flyer miles and still pay $700 for a ticket. But if you know how not to get hit with those taxes, you're going to be paying $50 a ticket. So that's a really important point with frequent flyer miles. And the best part is like how to do this over and over again so I can continually travel for free. It's not a one-off thing. It's not, hey, I got one plane ticket. It really is I've gotten plane tickets all over the world now for the last 4 years, and people that I know have done it, and people have gone through boot camp and everything like that. So I learned it the hard way. You're going to have a chance to cheat, which I love. I mean, this isn't like a classroom. I'm not a school teacher anymore, so you guys can cheat. That is okay in my book. The hard way basically consisted of 6 months sifting through these frequent flyer forums, very geeky, very nerdy. I did not understand anything I was reading. It was like teaching myself another language. I would just spend hours reading and only understand like bits and pieces. But because I knew that it was working for people, I just kept persisting and thinking, it's going to pay off, it's going to pay off. I'd send hundreds of emails to people who were writing about this, and I wouldn't hear back from them because, again, they weren't teaching it. They were kind of just, it was like an old boys club type thing of, oh, we all know about this, let's kind of talk about it, but we're not really going to help other people figure it out. I'd Google stuff, like I wouldn't understand something in the forum, I'd put it in Google, and of course it would send me right back to the same forum. So I was back where I started. So lots of hard work. If you call the airlines and you ask how to use frequent flyer miles, they're not going to help you because it costs money for you to use frequent flyer miles and get these cheap tickets. So a lot of hard work. But after 6 and 7 months, I really started to figure it out, as you do when you're persistent, and that's the kind of stuff that I want to share with you now. So the very first secret that I learned, and when I first started, I thought, I'm not going to earn frequent flyer miles because I don't fly a lot. I fly once or twice a year, maybe. The only person I knew who was earning frequent flyer miles was my uncle, and he was a business traveler, and he was going to China, and he was going to Germany. He was flying every couple days, and so he took me in the lounge one time. I remember that. I think I was like 10 years old. I walked in this airport lounge, and I thought I was royalty. But he was the only one I knew who was using frequent flyer miles, and I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to do that because I don't fly enough. And that was all the way up until I was 28 years old, and I started learning about that. So frequent flying is not the only way to earn frequent flyer miles. It's actually probably the worst or hardest way. I've now been able to earn over 4 million frequent flyer miles in the last 4 years. So here's a screenshot I took of kind of a program that has all my accounts in it. And so you'll see that right now, sitting in our accounts, we have 2,040,307 different frequent flyer miles amidst some different airlines. So we're lucky enough that we could get on a flight almost any day, and we could travel almost anywhere in the world for free. So I learned that there's a lot of ways that don't include flying. So if flying's not the best way, what is the best way to actually do this? The best way and the quickest way, I should say, maybe not the best, but the quickest way to get large chunks of miles is by opening up good travel credit cards. And so I always tell people when we start talking about credit cards, some people say, oh, well, this or that, they have reservations towards it, and that is good. I'm glad that when you hear people telling you, like, go get credit cards, you kind of have some reservations, because that means that you're smart about it. And the people who are smart about it are the ones who end up getting all these frequent flyer miles and really being able to take advantage of the system that we have in place. So, for example, one good travel credit card can earn you anywhere between 40 to 75,000 miles as a sign-up bonus. So it costs 60,000 miles for a round-trip ticket between the U.S. and Europe. So if you wanted to fly Denver to Portugal and back, that will cost you 60,000 frequent flyer miles. So one good travel credit card, that sign-up bonus that everyone sees on TV all the time of earn 50,000 points or 60,000 points, that's what we're talking about. It doesn't cost you anything extra. You get those points for spending on your credit card. I always tell people, of course, don't spend more than you normally would. Whether that means you're always paying cash, now you can put it on a credit card and pay it off right away, or debit or whatever. And it takes you about 15 minutes to really sign up for a credit card, and then they'll send it to you and you get it. So for a little bit of time, you can have some big rewards, and that's where most of my frequent flyer miles come from, is finding the best travel credit cards, opening them up, using them, paying them off, and then finding some other ones. There are plenty of ways you can do it without travel credit cards. That's the biggest way to get chunks right away. One really cool way is online shopping, and some people may be groaning right now because they hate shopping. Some people may be cheering because they love shopping, but everyone should be cheering for online shopping, because this is an awesome way that anyone in the world can do to get tons of miles. So if credit cards are your biggest chunks, the easiest, quickest scores, this is the second. Online shopping, here's a really good example of how you can do it. My parents, for Christmas 2 years ago, I bought them a hot air balloon ride, and it cost me $300, and I bought it from Groupon, and if I use a regular credit card and I went to Groupon and I bought it, I would get 1 point for every dollar I spent. So I'd have gotten 300 points for buying a $300 item. Instead, there's these online shopping portals, and all they are is you go to chase.com and it spits you right to groupon.com or whatever you're buying. It takes you about 2 minutes to go through the online shopping portal, but they give you these big bonuses. So Groupon was offering 70 points for every dollar that I spent. So that $300 purchase that I made got me 21,000 points for buying that. It took me, again, 2 extra minutes. The out-of-pocket cost was nothing. I wasn't spending anything more than the $300 for the balloon ride, but I was getting 21,000 points. 21,000 points, to put that in perspective, it's 25,000 points for like a round-trip ticket in North America. So I almost got myself a free round-trip ticket in North America simply by taking a few minutes to buy one purchase online. So there are people who go crazy with this. They buy everything online. They buy soap. They buy toothbrushes in bulk, all that kind of stuff. I don't even do that. Whenever I have a big purchase, I make sure that I look to see if there's a good deal online. If I'm buying a new computer or a TV or a couch or stuff like that, I look to see if I can get some big amount of points by shopping online. Also, during the holidays, this is a great time because they come up with huge bonuses. So if you want to avoid the Christmas rush at the mall and you want to get some awesome bonuses, Christmas is a great time when everyone jacks up their rates and gives you a lot of points. Mother's Day is great with flowers. They might give you 40 or 50 points for every dollar you spend. So that's a really neat way. So flying, secret number one, flying is not the only way to earn frequent flyer miles. In fact, there's a lot of other ways. And I have earned, out of the 4 million frequent flyer miles that I've earned, only 20,000 of them have been through flying when I actually paid for a ticket and got miles for taking that flight. So less than 5%. So there's a lot of ways that you can earn a lot of miles that don't include flying. Secret number two, now that you know how to earn them, goes into how to use them. And they're not hard to use if you know how. And of course, I mean, you could say that about anything, right? And that's why that's kind of what this webinar is about, is teaching you kind of these little secrets about learning how to use frequent flyer miles. So the airlines, they want you to believe it's hard, because if they made it easy for you, then they would have to pay those tickets. So if I get on a flight and I'm paying $80 a ticket, and the person next to me is paying $800 a ticket, well, they're in effect having to pay that $720. They're making up that difference because that's not someone who's paying $800 a ticket. So they want you to believe it's hard. I always use an example. If it was truly hard, my parents wouldn't be doing it, and I'll kind of explain that in a little bit. But my parents fly around the world once or twice a year, not a lot. They're not crazy like me, but they get free flights, and they're the type of people who aren't going to spend all their time learning this, but they're able to do it. I kind of equate this to riding a bike for the first time, and so when you first get on a bike, you think, man, like my body does not understand how this works. You get on and it feels very, very foreign, and you don't even understand how someone could actually do this. Like how, you probably fall down, you think like this is the weirdest feeling. Your body is not in tune with what's happening. But once you get it, you have that aha moment. Like you start pedaling, and all of a sudden you're doing it, and then you don't forget it anymore. You can't even make your body feel that weird way again of how is this so weird to me? How could I not do it? With frequent flyer miles, it's a bit of the same way. When you try to do it the first time, it's going to be very hard. You're not going to have any idea how to do it. But once you learn a few secrets and how to do it, a light bulb goes off, and all of a sudden it becomes very, very easy to continuously do it. So you have that aha moment. Now, I'm not going to say like the aha moment's going to come after 1 minute or right as you're done this webinar, all of a sudden you're going to be able to do it. It really takes about 4 to 5 hours of the right guidance. And I've actually timed people. I've had people go through Bootcamp. I've done a lot of surveys of people who come to our site and said to them, when did the light bulb go off for you? How much time did you spend doing this before you knew enough to be dangerous? And that's kind of what I like to say. Like, you know enough to be dangerous before you could actually figure this out and get yourself some free flights. And it usually comes down to about 4 or 5 hours of the right guidance. Of course, as I told you, I spent 7 months, 6, 7 months in the beginning Googling and being in forums, and it took me that long because I didn't have the right guidance. So I'm going to give you some quick tips on kind of what you need to know. Some really quick hitting tips here that are going to help you out with frequent flyer miles. So the first thing is where to look. And again, I told you airlines want it to be hard for you on purpose. They kind of veil it in this secrecy and make it hard because they don't want you to redeem them. So here's a perfect example. American Airlines. If you open an American Airlines credit card and all of a sudden you have 60,000 American Airlines miles and you think, okay, that's great. Like I'm going to go to Europe. This is perfect. I've always wanted to see Madrid. And so when you have American Airlines miles, again, I can't see the chat box, but Nat and Jodie, you guys can see it. When you have American Airlines miles, where would you assume, and you can write this in the chat box, where would you assume that you would go to use those miles to then book a ticket? What website or where are you going to go? How are you going to book tickets, free tickets, frequent flyer tickets using American Airlines miles? For most people, and when I ask this question, it's like 90% of people tell me they would go to AA.com or AmericanAirlines.com because that makes sense. You have American Airlines miles, and so you say, okay, that's great. I got American Airlines miles. I'm going to go on their website. I'm going to book a ticket. The issue is that American Airlines does not show availability for all their partner airlines. That's one really cool thing that you should realize is that when you have American Airlines miles, that doesn't mean you have to fly on an American Airlines flight. You can actually fly on any of their 15 partner airlines that go all over the globe. So British Airways, a lot of people may know about. Iberia, which is a Spanish airline. You can fly on them. But the problem is when you're looking for availability, and this is where most people give up, they understand getting miles, but then they try to redeem them, and they can't do it because they go to AA.com and they don't see a flight to Madrid, and they think, okay, well, I guess there's just nothing there. So it doesn't show availability for all the partners. So this does not mean that a flight does not exist. Again, why is AA.com doing this? My guess is that they don't want to make it easy on you. Of course, they have the technology to show it because there's other websites that do show it, but they don't want to make it easy. So this does not mean that that flight doesn't exist. It just means that you could go to AA.com every single day for the next 6 months and search for that, and you will never see that flight come up because it's not going to show it. So you can spend hours of trying, frustration. It's not going to change anything. If you know where to look, then it's easy. So, and this is really an easy thing to teach you. Qantas.com, and they are a partner of American Airlines. If you go to Qantas.com and you type in that you want to go from JFK to Madrid, Qantas.com will show you all the available flights. The same flights that AA.com would not show you, Qantas.com will show you. Why? Again, I can speculate it's because they don't want to make it easy. So then what you do, once you know that you can go to Qantas.com and search, all of a sudden you go to Qantas.com, you search, you say, oh, there is that flight to Madrid. It is there. AA.com's not showing it. Then all you have to do is call up American Airlines and say, hey, here's the flight that I want. And lo and behold, the ticket agents will be able to see it on their side. They're just not letting you see it on the front end of AmericanAirlines.com. So once you know where to look, this becomes very, very easy. And that is probably the biggest problem that people run into. I always get people saying to me, Travis, that's great you want to teach me about frequent flyer miles, but I've tried them before and they've never worked. I can never get flights. They never work. And it's because they don't know where to look. And that's because the airlines don't want you to use these miles. But once you know how to look, boom, all of a sudden, Qantas.com. So, in 3 minutes, I was able to teach you that. Now that you know, you'll never have to go through those hours of frustration again. Another quick tip is when to look. And this is important, too. So when you book tickets with frequent flyer miles, it's the same as when you pay for tickets. Not in the fact that the price fluctuates, because it does fluctuate for paid tickets, but not for frequent flyer mile tickets. But in that the availability, there's a supply and demand that's happening, and they're changing things based on that. So, for example, one of the reasons that a lot of people say to me, hey, I've always looked, I've never been able to find flights. Okay, they might not be looking in the right area. That's the main problem. The second problem is they're not looking at the right times. So there's two quick rules that I can teach you. One is the 330-day rule, and this is exactly what it sounds like. 330 days out. So 330 days from today, which would put us, at sometime next April, sometime next early April, they will start releasing tickets. So you can actually either buy tickets or book tickets with frequent flyer miles. So the sooner you start looking, the better chance you have. So if I looked right now for the beginning of April, I would probably have a very good shot at getting the tickets and the flights that I wanted with frequent flyer miles, because I'm looking right when they're releasing stuff. This is really, really important when you're looking to go places that are kind of high peak time. So, for example, I'm going to Europe in the summer. People always write to me kind of right around now in May saying, hey, Trav, I want to use my frequent flyer miles. I'm going to go to Portugal in late June, early July. I'm like, okay, well, good luck. I mean, I hope you find something. I will show you where to look, but it's going to be very hard because everyone wants to travel to Europe and everyone wants to travel during the summer because the kids are out of school, they have more vacation time, all this type of stuff. So when you want to go places during peak times, Christmas time, basically anywhere, Europe in the summer, major sporting events, for example, I was able to book a ticket down to Brazil with frequent flyer miles, probably the biggest coup I've ever had. I was able to pay $5 to fly down to Rio and go to the World Cup. And that was a very, very hard ticket to get. And what I did was exactly 330 days before, I went on in the morning, I booked the ticket, and by 2 p.m. that day, the tickets were sold out. So if you know when to look, that's really important. The next kind of time that they start opening up more tickets is about 6 weeks out. So if you're fairly flexible and you don't get something, they start putting more tickets out to frequent flyer mile people about 6 weeks out, because at that point they realize, okay, most of the people who bought the tickets and want a paid ticket, they're already going to bought their stuff. So if we have open seats, we're going to allow it to frequent flyer miles. So 330 days out, good time to start looking. Also 6 weeks out, if you haven't seen anything coming up, you can look 6 weeks out, and a lot of stuff will then start popping up as being more available. The other quick tip, now you know, okay, where to look, when to look, what to use, and the big misconception is that a lot of people hear frequent flyer miles and they kind of lump them all together and say, okay, everything's the same. Delta miles are the same as United, is the same as American Airlines, is the same as British Airways. That is not true at all. Everyone has their personal favorites, but as a whole, there are some miles that are really, really good, and there are some miles that are really pretty bad. So United miles are really great. American Airline miles are just a touch below United, still really good. Delta miles are probably the worst miles you can get when we're talking about North American Airlines. And there's a few reasons for that, and I won't bore you with all the details, but the biggest one is availability. So United, they put out surveys that usually about 70% of the time that people are looking for availability with United using frequent flyer miles, they'll find it. With Delta, that number is closer to 20%. So, I mean, if you have 1 million Delta miles, that's great, except if you can never get a flight, we're back to what we talked about before. It's pointless if you can't find the flight. So availability is obviously a huge one. Some airlines allow you to fly one way, which for a lot of people, I'm sure, with house sitting is a huge one. You know, you don't always want to go back home. You're not always flying round trip. For us, it's a huge one. You can fly one way. I can fly from Philadelphia to London, hang out in London, and then I can continue on down to Nairobi instead of going back to America and then back. So it's really cool to be able to fly one way. The fuel surcharges I talked about in the beginning. We're not going to dive too deep into that. That's a little more intense stuff. And then stopovers and open jaws, which we're going to get to here, which are kind of the magic bullet of frequent flyer miles. So you want to make sure that you're getting the right miles. And there, like I said, there's kind of some general rules of thumb. Of course, if you want to know the right miles for you, I can obviously help you pick out what credit card is going to work or what miles you should be getting based on your situation and where you want to fly. A lot of you guys may have tried it before and not succeeded. We kind of talked about that, and that's because you didn't know how. I mean, you were on AA.com over and over and over again or something similar. You know, that's just an example, but it was never going to show you that. So it's not that you were dumb or you were doing something wrong per se. It's just that you were never taught the way to look for it, and American Airlines was not going to make it easy. So you tried before and you didn't succeed, and that's because you didn't know how. 4 to 5 hours of kind of the right instruction, and you're going to sit there and think, I cannot believe that I wasn't doing this earlier, which is exactly how I felt when I finally learned this. I thought, man, I'm 28. I wish I had started doing it when I was 21, but the best time to start is now if you're not already doing it. The last part is I do want to tell you guys there's no need to be a geek. I gave you a ton of information right there because I just wanted you to see what was possible. There's only one person in this picture who is a geek. You can probably pick that person out pretty easily. It's not the person actually wearing a thing on their head, although he looks like a geek. That's my dad. Him and my mom both were in Cambodia and Thailand with us a couple months ago. They flew out there actually first class using their miles. They actually booked it on their own. I told them, hey, I'm going to let you, I'm going to let you spread your wings on your own, guys. Book it on your own. They were able to do it. They've spent about 4 or 5 hours kind of learning this stuff and listening to me. But the cool thing is, if you do want to dig deep in it and you do want more information about the kind of stuff that I was talking about, there's so much minutia that you can really fall down the rabbit hole. And if you're someone like me who gets pretty into things and really wants to know a lot about it, it's a really neat hobby, and I call it a hobby because it is. It's just a fun thing to do because there's so much out there that you can do with it. But again, if you're someone who just wants a few free flights a year or you just want to do the bare minimum, 4 to 5 hours is about all it takes. So it's pretty cool. I want you guys to think, like, wouldn't it be pretty neat if you were able to fly anywhere? That place that you said, your dream destination, if you're able to fly to that place and you had to pay under $100, like, all of a sudden that idea of money, I think that's the thing that holds most of us back from traveling, is the idea of money. And if you're not paying for flights and you're house sitting, as most of you probably are at least in tune with a little bit, you really are almost essentially traveling for free. And it's really, really cool. So I want you to think about that. How neat would it be if you're able to take your family somewhere, or if you're able to take your spouse somewhere, and you all of a sudden you said, it's only going to cost me $200 for me to fly my fiance to Paris or anything like that. It's just an awesome, amazing hobby because it allows you to do some really, really cool things. Secret number 3 is there are even better things than $100 flights. And I know, like, what could be better than a less than $100 flight? I'm going to tell you, this is insane. This is kind of upper level stuff with frequent flyer miles, and I want you just to be aware of the things that you can do. And when you start learning this, of course, you're going to want to travel more. I mean, who most of you, if you're on this call, already want to travel more, but there might be something holding you back, or you do travel a lot, but you're like, well, this would be nice to have some extra money in our bank account because we're not wasting $1,000 to fly from Costa Rica to Europe or something like that. So what if you could get 2 or 3 vacations for the price of one? And remember, that price is now less than $100. We're basing on that. I'm not saying, oh, you're going to spend $1,000 and you're going to get 2 to 3 vacations. You're going to fly to 2 or 3 places for the same price that you would pay for one, and when you use your frequent flyer miles, that's under $100. So how awesome would that be? I mean, how cool would that be? I'm pretty excited here because I know I can do it, but it's really exciting to talk to people who may not know that's even possible and think, you know what, in 3 to 4 months, they could be doing the same thing. A regular ticket looks something like this. New York City to Paris to New York City, you would probably be thrilled if you got that for your 60,000 miles and under $100. And there's no reason not to be thrilled. You just got a trip to Paris, a flight to Paris that would probably normally cost you $800 or maybe $1,000, depending when you're going, for under $100. So you saved a lot of money there, and that's great. What's really cool, and I told you at the top of this presentation, that frequent flyer miles allow you to do some things that paid tickets don't allow you to do. And one of them is called a stopover. And this is what a stopover looks like. Instead of going New York City to Paris to New York City, you can go New York City to Paris, spend time in Paris, and what's really neat about this is you can spend up to 365 days. So you have 365 days to return back to New York City. So you can break that up in any way you want. You can go to New York City, you can go to Paris, you can spend a month in Paris, then you can fly down to Rome, you can spend 2 months in Rome, and you can come back to New York City. So when I say a stopover, that stopover is anything more than 24 hours and under 365 days. So, I mean, the world is your oyster when it comes to a stopover. So you can go New York City to Paris, spend time in Paris, hop on a plane again, spend time in Rome, and then go back to New York City. That will cost you 60,000 miles and under $100. So you guys seeing what's happening here? If we flick back to this slide real quick, 60,000 miles and under $100 to go to Paris, 60,000 miles and under $100 to go to Paris and Rome. And then there's another thing called an open jaw. And an open jaw is when you fly into one place and out of another. And when you combine a stopover and an open jaw, you're now able to do something like this. New York City to Paris, again, let's say 2.5 weeks in Paris, you're eating baguettes, you're hanging out at the Eiffel Tower, you're drinking wine on the steps of Sacré-Cœur, whatever you want to do. You head down to Rome, you eat pizza, you see the Colosseum, you do all that awesome stuff, and then you say, yeah, you know, that was cool. Europe's pretty neat. I want to see London, though. Like, what about Big Ben? What about Parliament? What about the rain? All right, you probably don't say what about the rain, but you go then to London, and you spend however long you want to spend in London, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. This is really perfect for people who are house sitting, because a lot of times if something came up, again, you don't want to go right back to your home or the region that you call home base, like New York City. So instead, all of a sudden, you're going New York City to Paris to Rome to London, back to New York City. So now you've seen 3 of the world's best cities, and I'm not going to tell you the price because I want you to guess the price. And if you can't guess it, I'll give you a little hint. We'll go back to the slide before, but the slide before said it was 60,000 miles and under $100, and the slide before that said it was 60,000 miles and under $100. So I'm giving you guys a little bit of a cheat here, but Paris, Rome, London, back to New York City. You can throw it in the chat if you want. How many miles are you spending? How much dollars are you spending? This is called a stopover and an open jaw. I want to throw one more thing out there just in case your mind isn't blown enough yet. And maybe you say, like, hey, Europe's cool, but I only ever want to visit Paris. I don't care about Rome. I don't like Italian food. And, yeah, the rain in London, and I don't love fish and chips, so we're not going there. We're only going to go to Paris. Here's another thing you can do, and it's called a free one-way, because what it is you're tacking a one-way trip onto the quote-unquote end of your trip. So this time you're going New York City to Paris. You spend, again, however long you want to in Paris, and then you come back to New York City. What's cool about this is, let's say your home base is New York City. You can go New York City to Paris, spend 3 weeks in Paris, go back to New York City, and then you can spend, again, up until a year. You have a year to finish this entire trip. So you might spend 6 months in New York City. And then you say, you know what, I want to go to Alaska. So you can add that Alaska trip as a free one-way on to the trip that you took to Europe. And so this free trip can go anywhere in the United States. There's actually some crazy ways that you can make it go down to South America and Central America. But for our purposes, you would go New York City, Paris, New York City, spend time in New York City again, and then later on go back out to Alaska. So you're just stacking these trips on top of each other. Again, I want you to take a guess at how much this would cost. If you don't know, you probably haven't been paying attention. But this will cost the exact same amount as the original trip. So all 4 of these examples will cost you 60,000 miles and under $100. And that's what's so awesome about frequent flyer miles is, A, you're getting these trips for under $100, but B, you're able to really do some crazy stuff, like we mentioned, like going to Alaska one way for free, going to 3 of the cities in Europe. What's really neat about something like this, again, I call this the magic bullet of frequent flyer miles because it's just it's taking what you already do and making it like 3 times better. And a lot of the trips that I showed you in the beginning, when we would, for example, go to Thailand and then Bali. We flew like New York City to Thailand, then from Thailand down to Bali, then Bali back to New York City. We were able to stack trips on top of each other. These are not publicized on purpose. If airlines don't want you to know about frequent flyer miles, they certainly don't want you to know about this because this costs them even a lot more money. It is totally legit. It's totally legal. It's part of the rules of frequent flyer miles, but of course they're not going to tell you about it. And the options are almost unlimited. So I want to flick back to this real quick, and I gave you an all-European vacation here. But what you could do is something like this. You could go New York City to Paris, and you can actually stop in Europe on the way to Asia. So you can combine continents in some instances. So you could go New York City to Paris, then down to Rome, then fly to Tokyo, and then fly back to New York City. So it doesn't even have to be the same region sometimes. So you can have these tickets. I mean, you could have a year's worth of traveling built into one single ticket if you did it right. I want to give you an awesome example. So are you guys understanding this? If you have questions, again, I can't see the chat here, Nat and Jodie, but
yeah, I definitely want to see what Rick and his family of 5 have done. I'm looking forward to that. But just a couple of questions that have come in have really, I think you're going to be answering anyway. So maybe we can leave it to the Q&A. And everybody has been participating too. Like they definitely got the right answers with American Airlines and 60,000 miles and $100. So we've got a smart bunch here.
All right. So what I want to do, and that's great, and it's really good that you guys are tracking here with me, and you're understanding this, and you're getting this because it's a lot of information all at once, especially if you've never used frequent flyer miles before. But I just want you to see how endless these possibilities are. And Rick and his family of 5 are a perfect example because Rick came through my boot camp and he said, "Trav, I'm really excited to do this. I know you and Heather do it all the time. I've seen you have other people go through." And that's great, but I have a family of 5. Like, how are we going to do this? This is going to be really difficult, right? And I said to him, like, yeah, it'll be a little harder, of course. Whenever you have more people traveling, it's harder to find availability and get enough miles and things like that. But it was really cool because he came through and he said, I always ask people, what's your dream destination? Just like I asked you guys in the beginning. And he gave me this crazy itinerary. And I thought, oh, Rick, you're trying to kill me here, but let's give this a go. And we made it work, and this is one of the things that I always look back to when I'm like, why are you doing this? Or times are hard. I don't want to like play the world's smallest violin here, but anytime that I need some motivation or inspiration to keep going, I look back at what Rick did. And they started in Chicago, and that's where his family lived. And he's like, we'd really like to go see Vienna. It'd be really cool. I want to show my kids Eastern Europe. Vienna's a really neat city. They were into music, so he's like, I want to go to Vienna. Like, okay, easy enough. Let's go to Vienna. Then he's like, all right, and then I want to go down to the Middle East, and I want to see Jordan, and I want to go to Petra. One of the wonders of the world that I've never been to that I'm really jealous that he got to go to and still want to go to at some point. I'm starting to think like Rick. Oh, my gosh. Okay, all right, we're going to go to Vienna. We're going to go to Jordan. Then he throws me this curveball. He's like, all right, and instead of, I thought he was like, all right, we're going to go to Jordan, then we're going to come home. I'm like, all right, yeah, we'll figure this out. And I said, but I really, 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 you speak a lot about Thailand. I really want to go to Southeast Asia. So he wanted to go Jordan to Bangkok. And I said, okay, that's really cool. And he's like, but I don't just want to go to Bangkok. I actually want to go down to the Thai islands because you always mention on your podcast and everything you do, this is your favorite place or one of your favorite places in the world. And if anyone hasn't ever seen that picture, that's Koh Phi Phi. It's one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. We've been a few times. It's absolutely stunning. And I kind of talked him into the Thai islands. I didn't have to really talk him into it. But he was like, we want to add this on. Is it possible? I said, you need to go there no matter what. If you're in Bangkok, you have got to get to the islands. And then from the Thai islands, he wanted to go back to Chicago. So I was sitting there thinking like, oh, okay, well, this is going to be the hardest one that I ever helped someone book. And to be fair, like I walked him through this. I taught him the process. We did it together. But he help. I mean, it wasn't like I did this for him. I held his hand, I helped him through it, but he went through it with me, and I showed him like, this is how we do this, and we did it all together. So long story short, Rick was able to book this. I don't want to leave a cliffhanger here. It was like, did Rick see CoPP? Yes, he went. I think they went for like a month and a half, 2 months. What's really amazing is he had 3 kids. They were like 13, 11, and 9, I think. And he came back and we actually got on the phone and we were talking. I was super excited. He's like, what the best part of it all was that my kids were able to see us. Like, it was really cool for me and my wife. But to take children on something like this, to see 3 very distinct parts of the world and 3 amazing things, absolutely incredible. So what we did after they got back, and if you guys have a family of 5, I mean, some of you might have families, some of you might not, this is a good example. Don't be discouraged. Don't think it's impossible. Like, oh, Travis, it's just you and your wife. Or Nat and Jodie, it's just you 2 are traveling together, things like that. I mean, there are ways to make anything work, especially if you're willing to work for it. We went through and we're like, how much would this ticket have cost if Rick had bought this outright? And this took me quite a while to figure out. I spent some long hours going through and booking all these tickets. And it would have cost him $7,592 per person. So for a family of 5, that equals out to $37,560. So if you guys have $37,560 to spend, that's great. Go book that ticket. You will have a fantastic time. You'll get to see some really cool stuff. Personally, I do not have that money to spend, nor would I spend that much money on going to those places. So how much did it cost, Rick? And this is again the power of frequent flyer miles and the power of those magic bullets of stopovers and open jaws. Cost them $80 per person for all the taxes and fees for every one of those flights. For a family of 5, $400. So it cost them $400 to do this. Chicago, Vienna, Vienna, Jordan, Jordan, Bangkok, Bangkok down to the islands, and then the Thai islands back to Chicago. They spent $400, which is about the cost it would probably take you to fly round trip between New York and LA. You might be able to get it for $350, something like that. So for $400, his whole family of 5 was able to go there. They saved $37,160. So I just want you to think about that. I mean, how awesome would that be if you could take a trip like that? And I know you guys put in the chat box your one dream destination. I want you to think now of, hey, if you're able to stack these trips together, now if you can actually go 2 or 3 places, what types of trips would you want to put together? Would you want to go Chicago, Vienna, Jordan? Would you want to go Chicago, Paris, Morocco, Tokyo? Put that in the chat box for Nat and Jodie and all of you guys to see, because that's the type of thing you're able to do with frequent flyer miles. And how awesome would it be if you were able to give that gift to your family or your spouse or even to yourself? Treat yourself to something like that. Be pretty neat. And the fact that Rick was able to do that with his family and the stories that he told me, and he just said, like, this is going to change their world. And I know for me, traveling has done that. It has literally rocked my world. I've seen things I never imagined I would have seen. I go home to Philadelphia. I'm with friends. I see their lives. It's fine. A lot of you guys are already traveling a lot, so I don't have to sell you on this idea of traveling. But it's really amazing that I'm able to do all this stuff, and I'm not spending any more money than they're spending to sit at home and like go to a movie every once in a while and eat out. I'm spending less a lot of times because I'm flying anywhere for almost free. And with house sitting, if you're not spending money doing that, it's really an amazing opportunity, an amazing time that we live in to be able to do all this kind of stuff. So what we do at Extra Pack of Peanuts, of course, is we have our frequent flyer bootcamp. And a lot of what I taught you guys today, you can go and you can take this information and you can run with it. I mean, you can spend time digging into the forums and all that kind of stuff and learning this. But what we do at Frequent Flyer Bootcamp is we do boil it down. We spend a lot of time boiling it down to like 4 to 5 hours of stuff that you would know to literally be able to watch that and then start booking right away. And the things that you guys get with Frequent Flyer Bootcamp, we've got the Frequent Flyer Mile Master Sheet, which is the spreadsheet that we use to keep track of our credit cards and our miles and everything like that. We have the Ultimate Guide to Frequent Flyer Miles, which is the ebook that we made plus the audio book and everything that comes with that. And that was actually our first product, and you would get all that as part of this. Then the real kind of meat of Frequent Flyer Bootcamp is the HD video series. We sat down and we made 15 high-definition teaching videos on whiteboards, on screen captures, showing you exactly how to do every single thing that I just described to you today. It walks you through it. We do the Magic Bullet video series, which is the open jaws and stopovers, and all of that, if we were to sell it together, be $1,388. We talked about who this worked for, And really, that's what's so amazing about the frequent flyer miles, is that it doesn't really matter who you are. Even big families like Rick, who travel together, couples, travelers who travel constantly. I know a lot of people out there who are house sitters travel quite a bit. Nat and Jodie have been on the road for 3.5 years. I've been on the road for 3.5 years. So travelers who travel constantly, or just people who want to take 1 to 2 trips per year. And what's really neat about the boot camp is we have people of all walks of life kind of going through that. So I gave you the example of Rick as a big family who travels together. Tiffany and Chris are an amazing couple who are on a round-the-world honeymoon. And so they said, we are currently on a round-the-world honeymoon. They've actually been on their honeymoon for 9 months. They've gone New Zealand, Fiji, Egypt. I met them in Thailand. They were in Cambodia. I think right now they're up in Scotland, and they've saved tens of thousands of dollars on flights. They're actually flying a lot of times business class, and that's not even something we've talked about yet. But if you do have a kind of a high taste there, or you get a lot of miles, you can actually fly business class. And they said they never could have done it before. They're both freelancers. I personally know them pretty well. I know how much they make per year and things like that. No way they could afford that type of traveling without using frequent flyer miles. Mario is a guy who makes my head spin in boot camp. So since boot camp, he's been to the World Cup in Brazil, England, Sweden, Italy in January, Miami in February, Singapore, Bali, Malaysia, and Tokyo in March, and Morocco in April. I never dreamed I could travel this much, and now I'm doing whatever I want. I think he's probably the only person I know in the boot camp, who gives me a run for my money and who books stuff as last minute as I do, because he'll get on boot camp and he'll say, hey, I'm going to Miami tomorrow. Anyone else want to come? So really cool guy, just been able to do a lot of traveling with his wife. And Jerry is a perfect example of someone who isn't this constant traveler. Before boot camp, I was so confused about the tricks and methods to get cheap travel, but boot camp cleared it all up. I was able to visit Jordan and Cambodia in one single ticket. So she did what I told you guys, that magic bullet. She used that stopover to go to Jordan to see Petra and then Cambodia to see Angkor Wat, so 2 of the 7 wonders of the world. 2 dream vacations in one, saved thousands of dollars. But she's not someone who travels as much as us. Obviously worth it for her because she was able to go to those 2 places. When I made this boot camp, I had 2 choices, and I wasn't exactly sure at first what I wanted to do. I could really scale it down. I could sell it really cheap, $97. We'd have tons of people buy it. But what I learned a lot of the products and the things that I've seen online is I get the value from the products that actually hold me accountable, and I'm part of something. And all of you guys are part of this house sitting world, and you know how important it is to be part of a community of people who are all doing it. So what I said was, yeah, I could do it, and I could sell this ebook, and then sure, you buy it, and I wouldn't know who you are, and I'd hope that you took a trip, but I wouldn't have any way to even know if you took the trip, and that didn't seem right to me. So what we did is we made it totally great. We spent, probably 100 hours making the boot camp itself. We're going to sell a lot less, of course, but it's to give you the personal attention, have the personal connection, and actually help. I mean, you're going to see the guarantee that I give you guys, but later on, but this is to ensure that you actually are taking that dream vacation. I don't want it to be something that you get and then you put on the shelf and then you don't use, because that doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help me. That doesn't help you. We want to make sure that you're out there traveling. So what you're going to get, as we mentioned, the master sheet, the ultimate guide first class package, so you can read through it. You can listen to the audio book through it on your iPod, the HD video series, the Magic Bullet video series as well. All of that is what you're getting in boot camp. And then a really cool part of boot camp is that we're now offering a lifetime membership to the private frequent flyer boot camper group. And I'm going to share a quick story with you guys, and this happened 2 days ago. So this group has blown me away with how amazing it is. And as you guys know, you're already part of a community, so you kind of understand that. And we have this frequent flyer boot camp group. It's over 150 people strong now. And someone got on yesterday or 2 days ago, and I saw it pop up on my phone. She asked in the group, hey, I need help really quick. And she asked a question about a credit card and what she had to do to be able to get approved for this credit card. She had messed something up. She said, I need to do this quickly. I need to get these points. And I thought, okay, well, as soon as I'm done lunch, I'm going to go back and answer this because she needs this help quick. I got back 45 minutes later. I hopped on. There was 8 answers. 8 different people had given her advice on what to do. She had already written back that she had done it, gotten approved for the card, and was getting the miles. And I didn't have to do anything. And it was a complete reminder of how amazing it is when you tap into the power of community. And you guys know that because Nat and Jodie are all about that. So am I. So you have this private lifetime membership. You can ask any question 24/7. And what we also do then is we give you access to our frequent flyer bootcamp vault. And I have done 24 different question and answer sessions that have been over an hour each. So over 24 hours, you could binge listen to my question and answers for a whole day, not sleep, and get some. Any question that anyone's ever asked about frequent flyer miles is in those that frequent flyer bootcamp vault. You get that totally for free. You can download them. You can listen to them whenever you want. You can re-listen to them, anything like that. And that's all part of the frequent flyer bootcamp package: the ultimate guide to frequent flyer miles, the HD series, the magic bullet, the lifetime membership, and the instant access to the vault. And what's really cool about this, I've struggled with this a lot when I was even still, is the idea of money versus time. And so for me, I told you guys, I spent like 7 months figuring out this stuff, and that was only to get to a base level. I didn't know about stopovers and open jaws until I was probably 2 years into this whole process. So, I mean, if I would have known about them the first 2 years, I would have even had more free travel. And what's really cool about being able to teach people this is the idea that, every 2 weeks, or if you have a regular job, every 2 weeks you get money and that replenishes. But the one thing that never replenishes is time. And I'm very happy that 4 years ago, I was able to learn about frequent flyer miles, because I've been able to have 4 years of full-on travel since then. And there's no way that you're going to ever get that time back. You'll get the money back, you won't get the time back. So as I mentioned before, people can sit there and you're like, hey, yeah, you can get this information all online, and that's fine. That's what we teach on our website as well. But if you want to start traveling right away, if you're like, this is something I want to do and I know it's going to be worth it for me, you don't get the time back. You might as well start now, because the sooner you start getting to that dream destination, the more you're going to realize there's more places out there I want to see. And as we mentioned, I can continually do this year after year, month after month after month. Give you just a few examples. If you and your spouse, and these are just some trips. I actually pulled these screenshots from 3 days ago. So really up to date, almost real time stuff. So if all this did was get you and your spouse one free trip to Australian economy, because I know someone mentioned, which was perfect, that they want to go to Australia, that's a huge one for people to use frequent flyer miles to, because it's really expensive. So if all this did was get you and your partner, your spouse or something, free trip to Australian economy, as you can see, the cheapest ticket there was $1,852. So you're saving over $3,000 just with one ticket in economy class. You're not high class, you're not going business, anything like that, to Australia. If all it did was get you one ticket, just one, in business class to Japan, because we didn't even touch on this, but a lot of people use their miles for business and first class because it's not a lot more miles, but flying business class actually out of pocket is pretty prohibitively expensive. If you flew one time to Japan in business class to Japan is about 100,000 miles. So if you got one ticket, just you're a solo traveler, that's going to save you over $3,500. And then if you and your family of 4 got one free trip to Europe in economy class, again, I just priced these out a couple days ago. If you took a nonstop trip, or if you took even a 2-stop trip, that's $1,400 to go down to Rome. That's going to save you $5,700. So if all that did was one ticket, the value is probably going to be there. And that's why you can see when we actually surveyed all the people who went through Bootcamp and said, how much was this course worth to you? Tell us. Tell us honestly, how much would you pay? How much was it worth it after you've done it? And people say $2,000 because I know I got a free trip to 2 free trips to Europe. $3,000, $5,000. That's how much it was worth it to them, because that's how much they equated to what they got in free travel. Obviously, we're not going to be charging you guys $5,000. Nat and Jodie have actually, we've decided to offer a very special discount. We are charging you guys $3.99 for Bootcamp. It's usually $4.99 for the public. If you use the discount code SITFLY, SITFLY, you can get that for $3.99. We'll give you 100% or $100 off.
Yeah, so I've just put the link in there. You should be able to just click on that, and the SITFLY code is going to get you the $100 off as well.
One cool thing that I do want to mention too is a lot of people have always said to me that it's the money. It's the money that holds them back from traveling, and that was always that was the reason I didn't travel a lot either. It was the money. And what's really cool about learning about frequent flyer miles and house sitting, and I know you guys can attest this, is you get to kind of say goodbye to that. It's really weird to say, you know what, I'm going to fly down to Mexico in a week, and I don't even have to worry about the money aspect there. I'm going to pay $29 to get a ticket down to Mexico. And it's just something I never, ever, ever, ever envisioned I'd be able to do. And with the house sitting with accommodations and the frequent flyer miles, it's really cool. You get to say goodbye to that. One other bonus that we have, and I want to make sure they see this, is a lot of people say to me, like, okay, well, when I have to call in, like, let's say I can't book it online, because a lot of the really hard ones you can't book online. then you can't, you have to call in, and they don't like being on the phone, and none of us do. So what we've actually created just special for this last group, we just did this a week ago, is a frequent flyer mile call-in script, and it's the exact script that I use every time I call in to have to book a frequent flyer mile ticket. So I also didn't like calling in. I'm like, oh, this is weird. I don't want to talk to this agent, this and that. So what I did one day is like, what should I say to him? I wrote it all out, and now I just go almost verbatim from that script. So we will be throwing that in for people as well, if they get the frequent flyer mile bootcamp, which has just been really cool because a lot of people were asking me for it, and that's one of the things we do at bootcamp is if there's something that isn't in there that they want, it's really neat that we get to create it and say, here you go, here's an extra bonus. So all of that stuff that I mentioned before, you guys are going to get as well in the frequent flyer call-in script. And here is the actual one, right? This is the right place. Discount SITFLY, SITFLY, and you can get it at that link. So just wanted to make sure that you guys had the right information on the screen there.